Well, Israel's new president lashing out tonight at Ben & Jerry's decision not to sell their ice cream in areas the company is calling occupied Palestinian territories. Isaac Herzog labeling the boycott part of a, quote, new form of terrorism. Economic terrorism, he claims, is trying to harm the citizens and economy of Israel. Let's bring in the author of the upcoming book, Woke, Inc., Vivek Ramaswamy, for reaction to Ben & Jerry's decision and more. Vivek, always great to have you. Let me start out by reading what Ben & Jerry's has to say. They say, we believe it's inconsistent with our values for Ben & Jerry's ice cream to be sold in the occupied Palestinian territory. They say that speaks for itself. What do you think?
Well, look, Ben & Jerry's isn't just two guys in Vermont anymore, Shannon. It is a subsidiary of Unilever, which, in my opinion, is one of the most nefarious, hypocritical companies in the global woke industrial complex. I mean, this is a company that, as reported by many news outlets, did not protect its own workers in Kenya as they were raped and pillaged by their own colleagues. 56 women raped, at least 11 were killed. Unilever does nothing. And yet now its ice cream subsidiary is issuing these proclamations about Israel. And you know this as well as anyone. The Israel-Palestine issue is complicated. It is layered in decades of history. Why would we expect an ice cream company to have an evolved opinion about it? We shouldn't. It's hypocritical, and I think that we ought to call it out for what it is.
To Disney now, because the Jungle Cruise ride is going to be reopening in connection with the movie. I remember this as Disney World when I was a kid, riding this thing. You're looking over the edge. What's going to get me? Is it an alligator? Is it a hippo? But things have changed a lot in the decades since I was a little kid riding the ride. And it's gotten a makeover. They say it's more culturally responsible. Primarily, they say it's aimed at getting rid of negative and racist stereotypes. This is what they say in the LA Times. They say the long overdue course correction of the Jungle Cruise shifts the show to nature, the elements and the peril that awaits man when he tries to tame it, garner racist scenes of a spear-waving war party or a tribesman who will trade, quote, 2 of his heads for one of yours. It says the park edges towards 70. It's got to take measures to reflect the diversity and values of its younger audience to maintain pop culture relevancy. It's a new ride.
Well, look, Shannon, I don't have a particular problem with this individual decision in isolation. What I do have a problem with, again, is Disney's hypocrisy as a global corporation. They are taking a magnifying lens to every possible microaggression they can find here at home. Yet last year, they go to the Xinjiang province of China to film Mulan. That is literally ground zero, the epicenter of the Uyghur human rights crisis. And they don't say a peep, where there's over 1 million Uyghurs in concentration camps undergoing forced sterilization, undergoing indoctrination. They don't say a peep until the very end, where they thank the CCP for allowing them the privilege of filming there. And so I think it's that hypocrisy that really bothers me the most. This particular decision of the day, I wasn't too worked up about it, but I think the hypocrisy of these global corporations reveals how shallow these microaggressive proclamations really are.
Yeah, consistency would be good. So let's talk about Hasbro, the toy maker. This packaging engineering guy who was doing some contract work said he was called into a meeting. They start talking about babies and racism by saying by age 3, kids are already starting to apply stereotypes, may use racist language intentionally. White children at this age may report explicit or overt negative attitude towards people of color. David Johnson is this guy who's the whistleblower who says, hey, I just think people should know what they think about your babies and kids being racist.
Yeah, look, is it true that kids see color, Shannon? Yes, kids see color. They're not blind. But that doesn't mean that they see race. They see race when we teach them to see race. And I think that when you teach a 3-year-old kid that white kids are privileged, what do you think he's going to think? He's going to inherently see whiteness as superior. That's why this race consciousness, this push for race consciousness, is actually a driver of racism. And in my opinion, race consciousness doesn't end racism. It causes racism. The younger we start, the worse it is. And I do think it's really important in our schools or elsewhere to call it out, especially when we start that young, because then we're tainting an entire generation ahead of us.
Yeah, I think all of us, most of us, I hope, remember having a childhood that was filled with all kinds of different friends and not thinking about those things, just loving people
Exactly.
And reaching out to them as we are called to do, believing as I do that everybody's in the image of God. Vivek, thank you very much. Always great to have you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Shannon.